How's it going, everyone? Here we are with another episode of the SnapRefund podcast. Today we have an esteemed guest of the highest honors. We have an amazing person for you all. If you don't know him, you will soon. Please, everyone, welcome us in introducing Moiz Dawoodbhai.
Yes, Moiz.
It's great to be here. Great to be with both of you guys and be in the SnapRefund in the middle here. Be the sandwich by these two great gentlemen.
Well, actually, I'll just jump in. It really makes sense because you are the glue for SnapRefund. You know, a lot of people that's been following us and been a part of our podcast have followed our story, and they know how much of an impact Northwestern Mutual has been to SnapRefund and in our journey. And to put a face to the name and what we've been doing, it's really you, Moiz. So taking a step back for the people that don't know you and haven't heard about your story, do you mind telling us a little bit about your story and your journey and how you got the Northwestern Mutual and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at Northwestern Mutual, almost 8 years now. So I don't know if I'm a lifer yet. This is supposed to be a short stop in the insurance industry, but I call it home now. So I love it. So just a little bit about Northwestern Mutual. So we are a life insurance, long-term care disability company. We've been around 100 plus years. And our kind of mission right now is to provide financial security for Americans across the nation, right? And we do that through our financial advising group. And we believe that life insurance is the center of a financial plan, and the goal is how do we get that in front of everybody. And for me specifically, I lead our impact investing and accelerator program. Those are both strategic investing arms of Northwestern Mutual. And the whole goal, get capital, deploy it to early stage companies, early stage funds to gain insights into new areas we want to go into. And then bring that back either to our business groups or put it out there for our advisors and our clients.
It's amazing. So, we're here at ITC. I think one of the things that's really important for anyone attending a conference of this scale is to have the right approach. So I'm curious, over the years, you've been coming here probably, I think, even longer than we have at this point. We've been here for a while too. What are some of the things that you'd recommend to both the investors who attend and also the startup founders who want to meet with investors like yourself and your team?
Yeah, that's such a great question. We're doing the math earlier. This is my 8th ITC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've seen it grow from, the 1,000 to 3,000 to 10,000 folks that are here today. And it is big. It's, we, at NM, we actually call it the Super Bowl conference because of just the magnitude of how big this thing is, but also the insights and connection and connectivity that you get. It goes and it fuels our strategy for the next year. So advice points. The good founders and the good fund managers and businesses, they've already created some form of a top 10, top 15 list, right? They've done a little bit of homework before they came to the conference and said, okay, I have 4 days. These are the top key people or organizations I need to meet with. At a minimum, get a handshake, swap LinkedIn's, a business card, whatever it may be, just to get in front of them, right? Now, I fully respect it might be too late for that, right? But it's not game over. There's still time to go in the app and make a top 5 list and say, I got 4 days. Let me find some way to get in front of these 5 people, right? And it could happen organically, schedule a meeting, whatever it may be. But we fully respect, it is hard. It's a hard conference. While you think there's 10,000 people here, I could just bump into somebody and say hello, right? Everybody's storming to a panel or a workshop or an existing meeting, or somebody like myself. We have a mix of portfolio companies here, so we have to do our checkups with them. Partner funds, we got to do checkups with them, right? There's lead generation for our next year for companies, so it's we got to do. You're right. We already come in with an agenda, so time is limited. So that would be my advice. Do a little bit of homework. Really understand, set some strategic goals for yourself, right? You're here, you spend a lot of capital, time, and effort to show up at this conference. What do you want to get out of it, right? Because the worst feeling is you're back on the plane and you're flying home exhausted and tired. And you're I didn't get anything from here, right? And I thought I was, but I didn't. You don't want that feeling. And then my last thing is just wear comfortable shoes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of walking. You're on your feet all day. But that just goes to, you got to take care of yourself. Your health is priority, right? Nobody faults you for that. So take care of yourself. come in with a good strategy, right, and then have a top 10 or top 5 to top 10, whatever it may be, list to engage with.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, you guys are hearing it first, right? When you come to these conferences, especially something as massive as ITC Vegas, you want to make sure that you plan ahead, get that agenda, right? What you're going to do so it doesn't become overwhelming, you have a goal. Now, when you're talking to founders, in your position, what do you prefer to see more of? Is it the product? Is it the strategy? Is it revenue? What are the guidelines that you're looking for that really helps you determine, okay, this is a company that we're seeking after, or this is what interests us?
Yeah. Anise, honestly, it's neither of those.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Look at where we are right now. We're at a conference. These meetings are, 30 seconds to a minute, and then you're on to your next. Right? These got to be fast-paced, very deliberate. This is who I am, and this is what I need. Right? And then from there, we can figure out, okay, perfect. You guys are building a claims platform. We have claims problems. The goal is not to let me pitch and get a deck and get all this stuff in front of you right now, because there's no time for that. And you're just overwhelming somebody, right? It's, all right, I need to make a good impression because I need to get a meeting scheduled with you when we're back in our home bases, where there's more time, there's less noise, we can talk about the products, we can talk about our problems, right? And then start to ideate on that. And I think people miss that, right? They're like, okay, wow, here's, a guy from Northwestern Mutual. I have limited time with him. Let me tell him everything I'm working on, and hopefully something sticks and the relationship moves forward, right? And then I'm thinking to myself, like, I have 25 of these meetings today. I don't know which one is which, or how does this person stand out? So I think a lot of it is, on the, do we vibe?
Do we vibe?
Right?
Yeah.
And as an investor and a founder or a company, right, these are long-term relationships. So it always comes back to, okay, regardless of where the company's at today or whatever the investment looks like, do we want to work together? Because a lot's going to happen. And we can walk away with like, okay, there's some mutual, we vibe. I think we're both aligned in terms of where we want to go. Let's continue this conversation at home.
Yeah, it being long-term is so key, I find, because even looking back at our journey, we received investment from NM Future Ventures back in 2022, and it's only been 3 years, but even that, we've seen so much grow and change, and different challenges have arisen and been overcome, and you really can't shortcut that time period. Even though the first time I ever talked to you, it was more like, buy our software, it's really good for you. And then you're like, all right, maybe, you're just discovering we should be doing. So I would definitely double down on that and urge everyone to treat it like, planting seeds for the future,
Yep.
even though it's really hard to think that way when you have something, really exciting now in front of you. And that leads me to a thought I had. So when it comes to the approach with both the partnership that NM's formed with Generator and also what Future Ventures is doing and the rest of your team, can you talk a little bit about, number one, how you're approaching impact investing and what impact investing even means? And number two, how, if at all, are you trying to ensure greater access to capital for founders?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll answer the question in reverse, right? So the thesis for Northwestern Mutual around impact investing is create greater access to capital, right? So that's the moonshot we put out there. We had some strategy sessions around like what is the problem, right? Because saying create greater access to capital can mean many things to many different people. But for us at Northwestern Mutual, we see entrepreneurship, small business as a path to financial prosperity, right? Now you're earning your own way by building a business. But along that way, not only is your life changing, but you could also become an employer of choice. Now you're hiring people, you're becoming a staple in your community, right? You're becoming an employer, which that just grows, and you're you become this massive shop, right? From just think of like YouTube to now hiring staff, and
That's right.
Exactly, right? So that's the goal. So how do you do more of that? And that's where the Impact Investment Fund was set up to say, can we deploy capital to fund managers, first-time fund managers, right, that have great ideas, but they don't have capital to actually do it. They may have track records as good operators from startups, or they were in corporate America leading, development shops or M&A shops, and they want to do their own fund or create their own path. So we sought them out and say, okay, let's be part of their an LP in their fund. And then the second is, that's the fund, so we have the capital to be put to work. Well, they have to deploy the capital somewhere. So on the other side, we partner with generators, so shout out to the generator team.
That's right.
Great partners, 4 or 5 years. We've all part of that ecosystem as well. Where we set up a program to invest in early stage companies, not only give capital but also provide mentorship and guidance, with the whole point of once you graduate, you have the CEO coaching and expertise to take this from an early stage to a growth stage company, right? So the goal would be, if you're a founder, you go through the program, you graduate, you get a check from our LP fund, and then you hit your next milestone, and then you get a direct investment from Northwestern Mutual, right? And we've seen it work the other way, where we've had companies receive an LP check, go through the accelerator, and then come back to NM. But the whole point of that is, can we create a closed ecosystem that if somebody takes a chance on us to say, all right, Northwestern Mutual, you're on my cap table, you're a big strategic, why do I want you on there, right? And I hope that this answers that, is that we want to provide coaching, we want to provide access, not only to capital, but to mentorship, right? Say you're building a compliance tool. Well, we have a compliance shop, right, that you can pre-test things with, like, hey, does this language resonate with you? Does this deck resonate with you? Or, hey, I'm meeting with this compliance shop over at another company. What are they going to be asking me, right? And that level of transparency, insights, you don't really get unless you have the network and connections to do it. So that's what impact means for us. And then the other question I get is also like, okay, that's great. You're putting capital to work, you're making all these investments. Well, how are you keeping score? Right? So kind of back to that moonshot of entrepreneurship leads to financial prosperity. So we keep track on the amount of businesses that we impact, right? So the more businesses we impact, meaning they're receiving capital from Northwestern Mutual, will then generate jobs created, which is the second way we keep score. So as long as the number of businesses is increasing and the jobs number is increasing, then we know we're creating more.
Absolutely. Wow, that's really interesting, because when you talk about creating more, I mean, the contribution that you're making towards the economy is really brought from a high level standpoint, because founders like Cody and I, when we're looking for the investment and we're looking to get help with the funding, we're looking to build a business. What you're looking is on a different level, where it's, we want to help you build a business, but we also want to help you generate more for the economy. So who else are you bringing? And that's really a beautiful thing, what you guys are doing. I have nothing but great things to say about Northwestern Mutual, about Generator, and what you guys have done for us. So there's been a lot of the right things that you've been telling the founders in this. Can you tell us what is one of the biggest common mistakes that you've seen founders make, so that our listeners out there can learn a little bit about what not to do?
Sure. So I'll give, you want mistakes made at the conference, or do you want mistakes made in general?
Both.
Both. All right. So let's start with in general. I think sometimes founders approach their problem from a technology perspective, and I fully get, we're in a technology, we're in a digital age, right? And then especially in, call it the insurance space, that it's like, okay, I see this problem. Let me throw technology at it, and it should solve it, right? But they quickly forget that many carriers are 100+ years old.
Yeah.
There is tons of legacy and analog and workflows and all this stuff, call it all these different anchors that are out there. So when we're presented with this great solution that could, close more sales or decrease our handle times or engage with our clients and keep our brand relevant in families. And it's like, yes, those are all things we want to do. But you're quickly forgetting that there is 100+ years of legacy that we also need to pull forward, because that's the stuff we've built our brand on. So it's your typical, like, here's NM's the cruise ship, and you got a bunch of speedboats flying around, and it's great. They look great, and you really want to work with them. But you can't turn us that fast. And the reason for that is, obviously their legacy 100+ years, right? But these are big institutions, right? With multiple leaders and multiple strategies in place, right? And everybody's trying to work together to move the company forward. So when a startup is opportunistic in pitches, their just assumption is like, okay, cool, we pitched, we're going to get a yes, we're going to get into business, we're going to deploy this thing, they're going to multi-year client of ours, and blah, game over, right? And that path is not linear in any way, right? Reorgs could hit us, leadership can change, strategy changes overnight. Think if we just rewind to COVID, right? Nobody knew a pandemic was going to hit us at all, right? It just happened. So just think about the founders that were pitching us at that time, and it's like, oh wait, sorry, a pandemic just happened. We need to focus internally and get our employees to work from home and service our clients in a different way. That's what we're focused on, right? So this new AI gadget that you have over here just doesn't fit where we're at, right? So but that happens constantly. So that would be my advice is, right, it's a long game, and you have to consider the history of the firms that you're working with. And I think that cuts across the entire, all the markets that you would ever be in, right? That these are not just one and done shops. There's a ton there. And I think that translates also to the conference, right? Is that these are not one and done relationships. And I'm a product of this. So I joined insurance about 8-9 years ago. I come from healthcare. And I came in as a technologist. So I didn't really know kind of things we're talking about, right? The legacy and all this stuff. But I was part of a study group that they're now my best friends. And these were legacy folks from insurance. They understood, they brought me in. But that was 9 years ago, right? And through the 9 years, I've been coached and mentored and guided to say like, oh wow, I know this is an institutional problem, but I don't know why. What happened back then, right? So all of this it's network driven, and then I see it in insurance more than other industries. You guys are a product of that, right? Where it's, I had met our colleague Bobby, who's part of my study group, right? Then you guys got connected to her a few years ago, right? And now we're all connected in overlapping circles, right? And that multiplier effect is throughout this conference. So back to coming in with a plan, right? If you have that top 5 list, you're like, okay, maybe you weren't, I saw your brand, I saw you on the scorecard, but this is a great conversation, but do you know somebody that is doing X? And I guarantee you through a network, right, you probably know him, and then you and I can connect, right? So just taking advantage of the network when it's right.
Yeah, there's so much to explore here around not only positioning, go-to-market strategy, and what it takes for startups to break into the space, but also what we're seeing now and some of the trends. So I'll ask maybe a two-parter. Number one is, what are you seeing as it relates to AI as far as what does meaningful differentiation look like? And is it even at a stage where we can determine that? Because it feels like nowadays there's so many companies that are trying to do the exact same thing. And I think a lot of these players are coming in without the business context that someone in the industry might have, but they're coming in as technologists, and they say, well, it's possible to do these things or build these things, therefore we'll do it. Yeah. And I think understanding how you might view that as an investor and even maybe as a legacy carrier player would be really useful to a lot of listeners. That's the first question. Number two is, as you look at the future of the insurance sector, I'm curious to get your overall thoughts on where you think we're at. Are we in a late stage market, or are things really just beginning? Is there some nuance between that as far as where innovation leads us next?
Yeah. So I knew AI would come up in our conversation.
Inevitable.
Right? It always comes up. I think when you just think about AI in general, right? Not a specific type of AI. I think we always go into like cost cutting mode, right? We can save on talent, or we can refine this process, right? It kind of goes into like, okay, we can eliminate things because of the new technology. But people quickly forget that this is the wave of technology hasn't really changed, right? It was blockchain hit us. I was like, okay, blockchain's coming. It's going to get, the whole industry is going to wrap around this, and everything's going to be documented and organized. It didn't really mature the way they thought it was going to. machine learning, right? Oh, okay, we're sitting on 150 years of data. We're going to have all these algorithms and machine learning models that are going to be able to take all that data and create something really great, and the business groups are going to use it, and we're going to be optimized. Okay, well, that didn't really happen. And then omni-channel servicing came. And they're like, okay, all right, legacy carriers, you got to call, but everyone wants to text, and maybe you might start on Twitter, and then you got to, and it's going to create this great connectivity between, no matter where you start in your journey, you'll find your way forward. And that didn't happen. So, and I don't know if it's just me because I work at a life insurance carrier that I'm just like numb to risk now. It's like, I don't want to, it's too risky. We'll stay away.
Probably to some degree.
To some, right? But it's true. Like there's value there in AI, and yes, it can do a lot of these cost cutting and cost savings. But I think the true value and what we will start to see is more on the engagement side of the way it interacts. So let's just look at our brand right now. If you go to our website and you want to engage with Northwestern Mutual, you got to log in. Then all your accounts pop up. You're going through your accounts. You're clicking on it. And if you're like, oh, I have a question on this, right? Then it's like it shoots an email to your advisor, and then you set up some time, right? I think it's kind of cool because at some point, right, what if you were actually communicating with your online persona or online portfolio, in your account, and the AI is there somehow computing stuff back to you to say, like, okay, hey, your question was on why is this dividend different than that one, and it's engaging with you as if you were talking to a human, not a chatbot or a virtual assistant, that you're like, oh, hey, Flo, thank you for connecting with me, whatever it may be.
Right.
So I think there's some personalization that will come from AI. It will do some of the cost cutting, like that will happen. We know that, but I think it leverages as computers and call it mobile and all that gets better. I think the called digital agent co-pilot gets a little more real, and you start to engage with you engage with technology very differently than you do. The second question on where do you think we are right now? I think we're always going to be in a pendulum.
Yeah.
Where it's swinging one way or the other. So let's just go 4 years back. COVID happened, pandemic, right? Everything swung to like robo-advisors and online, get your, go to Policy Genius, put some demo in, buy a term policy, right? Everything was super easy, a lot of momentum, inertia to like focus on your risk products, right? And it swung heavily that way. But then, if you go to Policy Genius, you put all your demo in there, and it shoots out, it'll give you 10, 15 different policies that are all off by a penny, by all reputable brands. Which one do you choose? So then we saw the pendulum swing back to say, there is a need for a human in this conversation, or a certified agent, or a CFP, or just somebody that has the credentials that say, you know what, I just had a baby, I need to get a life insurance policy, which one is right for me, and have that fiduciary give you the right policy. So we saw it swing back to say, okay, there's a need for a human. Then I think where we're at right now is it's kind of coming in the middle to say there's this new generation, Gen Z, they're not your prototypical group. Like they have gig jobs, so they work multiple things, they work different hours, they're not 9-to-5ers, they don't like that. Some of them are from blended and sandwich families, so their families just look different than what your prototypical family is, coming in with high student loans, so they already have debt on the books. They want to engage with their financial life very differently than probably we do, right? They don't want it to be in a box. So I think the pendulum swings a little bit more to say, okay, we need some form of self-service, self-education, self-prospecting, that you can learn some of this stuff online. And I think AI plays a big component to that there is a more human AI that's helping say, okay, you just had a baby, here are kind of the things you need to do, and here are the recommendations, versus just a Google search. I just had a baby, what are my next steps? And like 25 different websites show up. Right now you have a personalized one for your plan, or for what your plan of action should be. But then when you need to convert that plan of action, there's a human financial advisor there that's like, okay, let me help you check things off your list. versus run you through a kind of prescribed model. And I don't know where that swing is right now. I think it's constantly going to do this for a little bit until we get to a point where there's, call it product market fit for technology, life insurance, legacy players, startups, right? And pretty much this panel and this group in market, and I don't know. Yeah. So verdict's still out.
Yeah.
Well, when it's really interesting about the perspective that you have, because really there's two levels, right? It's one, as being a connoisseur in the insurance space, all the time that you've spent in the industry, being one of the first people here at ITC Vegas, so seeing the technology grow in the 8 years, being a part of that. But you're also in a VC seat, right? You're also an investor, and you're sitting in that chair as well, and that's a big part too in who you are and what you do. What is one of the misconceptions that people out there have on investors? And let's correct that once and for all. If people don't know, really, why don't you go ahead and clear up some of those misconceptions people will have?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I'll just be authentic about myself, right? So I grew up in the business before I became a VC at Northwestern Mutual, right? So I'd come in with some level of expertise on like how our operations base, how we go to market, how our business works, which then helped me design and craft some of the theses that I wanted to invest in based off of my prior knowledge. So I think the first thing is that nobody has this stuff figured out.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's often a misconception like, I didn't get the money from them. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. And I would say you didn't get the money from the right investor, right? There's many out there. So that would be one. Like I think everybody's just trying to figure things out, right? And our game is like that. This is a 10-year game. So we're making bets today that we're hoping will come to fruition in 10 years. And nobody knows what's going to happen in 10 years. So I'd say give a little bit of grace as a founder, a business owner, to yourself, that you're not going to close every single check. And you're not going to make every single investor happy. But those aren't the right ones. Yeah. But there is a group of right ones, and that path will lead you there. The second is, I think, some founders, and maybe it's just education for the market in general, right? The VC does not hold the yes or no.
VC does not hold the yes or no.
We may be champions and really love I love the management team. I think these guys can get it done. We love the business model. There's something here. They're solving a problem that's noteworthy. It's something we're experiencing here within the firm. Right, there's a big ROI that can come from this. Like we can start to paint this picture out. I still have to present that to an investment committee. And that investment committee is comprised, right, if you're corporate venture like us, right, that's some of our C-suite members are on there, some leaders across the organization. If it's a traditional venture, right, sometimes it's the LPs that are part of that, right, or advisor groups that are there, right? That is the group that's pulsing the yes or no. And while we can influence that, and we can present and pitch as best as we can, the same way the founder is pitching to the venture capitalists is we're doing that to our committee, they ultimately have to vote and say yes or no. And I think sometimes and again, we're talking general, but I think that gets missed sometimes, that like, oh man, I was working with this guy for so long, we're somewhere, and then I felt like we were getting to a check, and then it ended, right? And it's, hey, sorry, my committee, the folks I report into, the investment committee, just thought this was not something for us right now, right? And that kind of goes back to the long game. To not lose hope. Again, maybe not the right investment group to have. There's another one out there. I think, and it's come to me right now too, because it just happened earlier today at the conference where I had, very similar to your guys's, two founders very early, have a great idea, and they're like, oh, we want to join Northwestern Mutual. Well, I'm like, look, we're a strategic investor. So one, you guys are not in our industry. So unfortunately, like we wouldn't invest in this because it's not a strategic fit. But two, we're early stage investor, but we're a follow-on investor versus these guys need an angel check, right? So it's like we wouldn't write a check that small. So it's like, how do you and again, they're hearing a no from me, where I could fully see in our conversation that they realized they were so happy, like, oh, we got to meet with you, and then they're leaving the conversation super sad because it's like, oh, okay, like this is not going somewhere. So I had to tell them, I'm like, look, you're not the right fit for me, but here are the two people you need to talk to, because they're the ones that are cut checks at the size you're looking for, and they have a little more refinement in their approach, right? So again, back to network effect, back to long game. It's like, he was the right one, but he got connected to somebody else, so let me talk to them. And then you never know. Maybe they join our accelerator program, like how you guys did, right? And then go through that way. So again, these are all overlapping circles in terms of funding to ideation to coaching. You just have to get in the circle, right? And play it to your strength.
Yeah, I think it's amazing to see where things end, because you don't really know, but when you're in the beginning, the possibilities are almost endless. Even when you hit a roadblock, sometimes that ends up leading you to the next thing that you really need, and you can't really see that while you're in it sometimes. And it's easier said than done, of course, but these things are definitely not linear, and they're not simple. So as we wrap up the episode today, I want to invite you, Moiz, to leave us with one thing, whatever it is, that you want to impart to all of our listeners. And one thing also that I also want to add, is there anything that you would say is a compelling reason for why someone should care to want to start an insurtech business? Because we know how hard it is. We know how long these things take. Is there a reason why someone should want to do it? And then after that, the floor is all yours to close us out.
Wow. My rationale to start an insurtech business. That's like, we could have a whole session.
Yeah.
Let me start with the mission there, right? I think people sleep on risk products until you actually need it. Mm-hmm. A death in the family, right? A car accident. You got hurt at work. You got diagnosed with a disease. And then you start to like, oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I pay for this? How do I take care of my family, right? And then you're playing behind. And that's sad. I've sat in a lot of those calls, and I remember when I was in operations, we were sitting in this lady's kitchen, and the story, it's been with me my entire career. Husband passed away. She had never, she never worked. She was just at home. He was the worker, passed away. She didn't know anything about the financial plan. She didn't know what to do. Like, her rock had just gone, right? And she was just sitting, like, you could just see, like, just glazed over. She met with us. We just started talking. She was telling us, she's putting it out there, like, I think my life is over too. The beauty of her husband was that he actually he had a life insurance policy, and he was working with an NN financial advisor, and they had a whole plan in place that if something were to happen to him, that everything would be taken care of, right? So through that life event, right, the house was paid off, the financial advisor knew exactly what to do with the accounts, and right, everything to take that level of burden off of her so she could grieve and be with her family. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think why you want to join this industry is because of that.
Yeah.
Is that at the end of the day, technology, AI, us being in here talking about how to put capital to work, none of that matters until you see somebody like that. And you're like, wow, okay, we helped her get through this, right? We were a small piece of that, but we were small enough that we took so much burden off of her that she could just focus on her family, focus on herself, and get through the next day.
Wow.
So that would be my advice. And there's so much to do across the entire value chain to make that experience better. So that would be my rationale. And then, so in closing, words of wisdom. I'll leave because of our relationship. Maybe I'll put this story out there if you guys don't mind.
Please.
I remember after the accelerator was over, right, and we were on this high. And then, was it the same day or was it a couple days later? You guys were like, we need to talk.
It was actually right before.
Or before. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So we were on a low. So I'll always remember this, right? So regardless of timeline, right? We were in the accelerator program. You guys were getting ready to graduate, and then you pulled us aside and said, "Hey, we need to talk." right? And we sat down and we talked, and it was like, hey, we're at this crossroads. We don't know what to do. Do we let SnapRefund go and move on to the next thing, or do we stick with it? Do you guys remember that?
Of
Right?
course.
The fireside chat.
A real fireside chat in front of the fireplace at Northwestern Mutual. And I bring that up, and this is the advice for founders. As you work with investors, as you work with organizations, it is hard to give the bad news, and it's really hard, right, to disappoint, especially your investors. Right, and sometimes you want to mask that and take care of it because, let me take care of this problem before I have to put my next quarterly report out, right? Because I don't want to do that. But I commend you guys because that's not an easy conversation to say, okay, wow, our one strategic investor on the cap table, we have to tell them that we're not doing as great as we thought we would be at this stage. But it gave us enough time to say, okay, this is where we are right now. Let's talk about it and figure out where we want to go versus if we were just reacting to it. So my advice, talk to these two about it because they did it, is it's always great to share the positive. We want to hear the positive. That's why we've invested. But I want to hear the negative more. And I want to talk about the hurdles. I want to talk about the friction points. I want to talk about what's not working because that's why we're here. Right, we're a strategic investor for a reason, is to help get through these things. So that's my last kind of hoorah for everybody here, regardless of role. Share the bad because I think there's more people want to help than scold. So
yeah, I think to leave in is just the value of transparency. Right? When you're transparent with your investor, like we've been with Moiz and with the Northwestern Mutual team, is that there's just more insight and data for them to really analyze the company as opposed to like doing smoke and mirrors and saying everything is great. And then at the last day when it all falters, you're like, oh, well, we tried, but we didn't do it. When you let them in on the ground level and being transparent, that really helps elevate your business, the relationship, and really coming out of that foxhole together because we're really in it together. So Moiz, thank you so much for sitting down with us and sharing your insight in the conversation. And to the listeners out there who's at ITC Vegas or planning your next conference, please make sure you listen to what Moiz talk about and really lay out that strategy and that plan as you attend these conferences and find value in what investors like Moiz and Northwestern Mutual are doing and other companies that you might possibly be looking for and what they're doing. Thank you once again. My name is Eddings Taylor.
I'm Cody Eddings.
And we really appreciate you guys joining us here on the SnapRefund podcast, and we will catch you later. Thanks, guys. Peace.